Hello and welcome to the news at 7, where we get to the heart of the day's stories and communities across Scotland. Tonight, Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwar calls for the Prime Minister to resign.
We cannot allow the failures at the heart of Downing Street to mean the failures continue here in Scotland.
We'll have analysis from Scotland and Westminster. Also tonight, the Scottish company shipping gas from Russia to Europe with the help of sanctioned icebreaker vessels. We'll also have all the sport with Jane. What have you got tonight?
Well, after Saturday's disappointing Six Nations opener, is there a decision to be made over Gregor Townsend's future? We ask a former Scotland international.
And the campaigners trying to save a herd of wild goats from being culled. Hello, I'm Lucy White. Welcome to the news at 7. Labour's leader in Scotland, Anna Sarwar, has called on the Prime Minister to resign over the appointment of Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the US. Mr Sarwar said the distraction needs to end and called on Sir Keir Starmer to stand down. We'll hear from our political editor Glenn Campbell in just a moment, but first here's what Anna Sarwar said today.
This isn't easy and it's not without pain, as I have a genuine friendship with Keir Starmer. But my first priority and my first loyalty is to my country, Scotland. And I am not willing to sacrifice Scotland's NHS, our schools, our communities, our towns, cities, villages and islands to a third decade of an SNP government. That's why the distraction needs to end and the leadership in Downing Street has to change.
Well, Glenn's here with us now. Glenn, quite a day.
An extraordinary day, and this intervention from Anna Sarwar is born out of frustration and anger. We saw some of that anger on Thursday, where in the context of the Mandelson mess, Anna Sarwar was making clear that not only did he think that Peter Mandelson was not fit to have been UK ambassador to Washington, but that he should never have been considered for that job. And that's a clear dig at the judgment of the Prime Minister Keir Starmer. At that point, Anna Sarwar was saying he could stay in office, that he would, he thought, still be there come the May elections. But over the weekend, his position seems to have hardened, and within a couple of hours of giving people like me notice, he was standing at that news conference calling for a change of leadership in Downing Street. Now, that's a very bold intervention for him to make. Some would say courageous, and whether or not that courage pays dividends for him will depend on how this story unfolds in the coming days.
It's journalism language, isn't it? But it really did send shockwaves through everything political today. Yeah. Do you think it was the right move by Anna Sarwar?
Well, I agree that it has got everybody sitting up and taking notice and focusing on this issue. This is not just Scottish news, it's news right across the UK. And if in time Keir Starmer is forced to stand down as Prime Minister and Labour leader, it may be that Anna Sarwar can say that he was the start of that process, that ultimately he made the right call, whether it takes days or weeks or even longer for Keir Starmer to go. We know that many in the Labour Party think that his time is coming to an end. I think there has been something of a consensus that if that were to happen, it wouldn't be until after the May elections to Holyrood, the Welsh Parliament, and across local government in England, and only if, as currently seems likely, Labour do really badly in those circumstances. There is a world, though, in which he may be forced out at an earlier stage. What's puzzling me is how, if Anna Sarwar wants to end distraction from Westminster politics and the noise that is coming from there, because he thinks the series of what he perceives as blunders and about turns from the Prime Minister have sucked the oxygen away from his attempts to focus on the SNP's record at Holyrood and to try and advance a campaign to replace them and for him to become First Minister. If Starmer stays, there's going to be lots of noise about the relationship between Starmer and Sarwar. So that distraction would dominate, I think, a lot of the coverage. And if Starmer goes, there's going to have to be probably a contest to replace him, and there'll be lots of noise and tensions within the Labour Party in those circumstances. So whilst in the long run, Sarwar thinks he's going to be proved to have made the right call, in the shorter term, is it just possible that he might have made things worse rather than better?
Glenn, thanks so much for that. Well, Paris Gricianis is in Westminster for us tonight. Paris, the Parliamentary Labour Party have been meeting there tonight. Do you have any ideas how that's been going?
Yeah, Lucy, I was across in Parliament for the start of that meeting, and there was standing room only. I saw MPs and ministers turned away, and the Prime Minister got a sustained round of applause when he went in. Now, what we're hearing is that the Prime Minister offered another apology to his MPs, and that the mood was broadly supportive. Now, going into that meeting, I tried to speak to some of the many Scottish Labour MPs who were going in. They were pretty stony-faced and not keen to talk, but off the record, I have been speaking to some, and they've suggested that, you know, there's a bit of confusion here about what exactly Anas Sarwar has been doing. Some Scottish Labour MPs who last week were telling me that they were keen to see the Prime Minister out of office, this week are saying that they're confused about why it's been done in this way. And Keir Starmer, it seems, lives to fight another day, but even if he survives into next week, Keir Starmer, pardon me, he survives another week, but, you know, we have a crucial by-election at the end of this month, and then elections in May, which, of course, could see him out of power in any case. So he promised to end the chaos, but tonight he's living the Westminster chaos.
Paris Gricianis at Westminster, thanks so much for that. Now, a Scottish company is helping to transport Russian gas to ports all over Europe, according to campaigners. Glasgow-based Seapeak operates a fleet of vessels that carry liquefied natural gas, also known as LNG. Ukrainian campaign group Razom We Stand says LNG is regularly shipped from Siberia aboard Seapeak vessels. There's nothing illegal about that, and Seapeak says it complies with all sanctions and regulations. But campaigners say the trade in Russian gas needs to stop amid claims that it helps fund the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, journalists from Unearthed, an investigative team operated by Greenpeace, claim the journeys these vessels make are only possible during the winter, thanks to sanctioned Russian icebreaking ships. Seapeak says it doesn't have a contractual relationship with any groups subjected to EU sanctions. Well, Alice Ross is one of the journalists from Unearthed. I spoke to her earlier and asked her to explain exactly what her team found.
Seapeak operates 6 out of 15 gas tankers which run gas from the Siberian Arctic to Europe. These are special ice-class tankers. Now, in the winter months, getting from the Siberian Arctic to Europe involves going through some really thick sea ice. What we found was that in order to go through some of this ice, these tankers sailed directly behind these huge nuclear-powered icebreakers. So this is a trade that wouldn't be possible during the winter months without those icebreakers. Now, why should we care about this? It turns out that those icebreakers are operated by Atomflot, which is under international sanctions, because the UK and the EU believe it plays a direct role in funding Putin's war effort. We looked at all 10 voyages run by Seapeak-operated ships last month, and in every case what we found was that they sailed directly behind a nuclear-powered icebreaker to leave the port and to reach the sea.
And were you surprised by any of this?
Trade in Russian gas to Europe is not illegal. But what was really striking to us was how central a role this sanctioned company with its nuclear-powered icebreakers is playing in the transportation of gas to Europe. Now, Seapeak and the energy companies involved have all said that they're completely compliant with all sanctions laws. They're not breaking any laws in this trade. But what we found is that Atomflot, which is under sanctions because of the role it plays in bankrolling Putin's war in Ukraine, is earning hundreds of thousands of pounds from this trade.
So who's actually paying that money then to Atomflot?
So what Seapeak have said is that they don't have any financial relationship with Atomflot.
And there is new legislation then which is going to come into effect on this, is that right?
That's right. So last November, the UK government announced a maritime services ban, which would basically prevent British companies from being involved in the trade of gas from the Russian Arctic to Europe in any way at all. What's not clear yet is exactly when those sanctions will enter force. The EU has also announced that it's planning to end the import of gas from Russia in all but the most urgent circumstances from the end of the year.
And why then is Atomflot under sanctions?
Well, both the UK and the EU have said that basically Atomflot plays a really crucial role in Putin's energy strategy and in bankrolling his war effort in Ukraine.
Alice, thank you. That's Alice Ross there from Greenpeace's investigative journalism team Unearth. Well, in response to those allegations, CPEAK told us we comply with all applicable sanctions and regulations, and we do not have a contractual relationship with any third parties subject to EU sanctions. BBC Reporting Scotland presenter Anne McAlpine has, for the last 5 years, been dealing with a stalker, enduring a campaign of harassment at work and at home. Today, the stalker, 71-year-old Robert Green, was sentenced to 2 years supervision in order to stay away from her for life. Anne spoke to Laura Miller about how this experience has affected her.
It was a couple of months after that it sort of intensified, and a gentleman started buzzing the house in the early hours of the morning. I think it was between about 4:30 and 5 in the morning. And he was holding the buzzer down for what felt like 20 to 30 seconds. So it creates that sense of urgency and chaos and panic. So I got up, checked my phone, nothing on my phone. My husband was away. I was home alone. Answered the door, the intercom, and nobody was there. So I went to the window, and there was a man standing in the middle of the road holding a carrier bag, looking up at the window. Which was really
terrifying.
It was actually terrifying. It was really disconcerting because whoever it was, a stranger to me, I didn't recognise him. He was holding a carrier bag. Again, that's the thing that links him back to the incident with getting dropped off in the car. It was through the police actually that we ended up making the connection between the letters and the person coming to the house, and that was in fact the same person. It was absolutely terrifying, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Nobody should ever be made to feel unsafe in their own home. It was intrusive, it was intimidating, it was a huge invasion of privacy.
Do you feel changed by it?
Absolutely, yeah. I feel completely different to the person I was receiving that first letter. I'm much more anxious, I would say. I am more introverted than I was before.
How do you move forward after an experience like that?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. I think talking about it has certainly helped. But I think that anxiety will always be there. It takes a part of you that I'm not entirely sure you get back. Hopefully, moving forward, it doesn't take any more of my energy and time than it deserves.
Now, if you've been affected by any of the issues raised in this report, details of organisations offering information and support are available at bbc.co.uk/action line. And you can hear the full interview on the Scotcast podcast on BBC Sounds or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, hospice leaders say Scotland must address a severe shortage of end-of-life care for those living with terminal illnesses in rural communities. Next month, MSPs face a final vote on assisted dying legislation, but the debate has raised concerns that those without access to good care might choose an assisted death at home over being cared for far from their families. Earlier, I asked Paula Cooper from Highland Hospice in Inverness about those concerns.
We know from research and surveys that have been carried out that around half the people in rural Highland and island communities feel that they have not received the end-of-life and palliative care that they felt that they or their loved ones required. So I think we need to look at how this can be addressed and how we can make sure that everybody across the Highlands gets the care that they require. I think we also need to look at how that is resourced and how we can work creatively and innovatively in communities across Highlands to deliver that care.
Paula, tell us, if you will, about the benefits as you would see them of hospice care.
So the benefits of hospice care are that we work in partnership across Highlands with other organisations. We know that we already deliver really good palliative and end-of-life care across communities through Highland Hospice, through NHS Highland and through other community-led initiatives. One of the things that we do at Highland Hospice is that we provide a palliative care helpline for people across Highlands, and we're looking at ways where we can expand our palliative care resource service across Highlands. But this all takes, again, more funding, more resources, for a system where staff are already stretched and resources are already limited. But I think working together is the way forward for communities.
We know that this assisted dying bill is going through Holyrood at the moment. As a hospice care provider, is there any of that legislation that would be palatable to you?
I think at this moment in time we need to firmly focus on palliative and end-of-life care and how we can deliver that across Highlands in a more equitable manner.
That's Paula Cooper there from Highland Hospice. Well, in response, Holyrood's Social Care Minister Tom Arthur told us the Scottish Government's committed to developing a sustainable health and social care system that ensures people get the right care at the right time in the right place. He added that next year's budget delivers record funding of almost £15.7 billion for local authorities, helping address increased pressure on the social care sector. Well, still to come, we're going to have the weather with Christopher and also the goats at the centre of a rewilding row in the south of Scotland. But first, it's time for the sports with Jane.
Thank you. Good evening. We'll start with rugby, and it was a hugely frustrating start for Scotland's Six Nations campaign on Saturday as they went down 18-15 to Italy in Rome. The hosts started brightly with 2 early tries, and Scotland couldn't wrestle the points back in awful conditions in the Italian capital. Well, earlier I spoke to the former Scotland international Craig Chalmers and started by asking him what went wrong for Gregor Townsend's side in the Eternal City.
You can't afford to give 2 soft tries like we gave away in the first 10-15 minutes to an improving side like Italy. And in those conditions, it's very, very difficult to get these kind of points back. So, yeah, it was a really disappointing start to the campaign. It's always really important to get off to a good start and get some momentum. Yeah, I think Gregor made some big calls before the game. The back three was a big call. He picked on form, and you know, he picked Tom Jordan at full-back. He's been playing 10 all year for Bristol, and Dobie on the wing, and Kyle Steyn, who's been in fantastic form for Glasgow. So he picked him form, and he was getting a lot of plaudits for that. But then when it didn't go quite so well, and there was 1 or 2 maybe breakdowns in communication in that area that cost maybe one or two of the tries at the beginning. People start picking it apart.
Have you seen improvements under Gregor Townsend with this Scotland side over the years that he's been in charge? And if so, the SRU, are they going to stick with this with Gregor, or do you think they've maybe got a decision to make?
Well, they've all got decisions to make, but I mean, Gregor has done some really good things with Scotland, I believe. He's been there a long time now. There was a maybe calling for his head after the World Cup in Japan in 2019, and he held on to his place there, and then he built the team up again, and they were playing a different kind of rugby, a bit more pragmatic, and it was a good style of rugby, and the crowds were enjoying it. We were enjoying it, but we just weren't winning anything. I think it's maybe the same voice, having the same person there for 8 years. I think he's been there 8 seasons. It's maybe just a little bit too long, but when do you decide to make that change? I mean, there's calls for Franco Smith to come in and replace Gregor, but he's doing a great job at Glasgow at the moment. Why would they stop what he's doing there? Yeah, lots of pressure, not just on the coaches, which there's always pressure on the coaches, but there's always pressure on the players as well. And they've got to step up and do the basics right. The lineup was poor last week. The throwing, I don't think, was that great. So listen, everyone's got to improve by 30-40%. And if they do, then there's no reason why they can't beat England.
Now, it's been a disappointing day for the Scots competing for Team GB at the Winter Olympics. We'll start with the curling and the mixed doubles team of Jen Dodds and Bruce Mouat. They've lost their semi-final against Sweden, tied it. And I'm afraid there was also heartbreak for Team GB's freestyle skier Kirsty Muir, who missed out on a bronze medal by the slimmest of margins in the women's slope style. Of a medal when she competes again in the high air starting on Saturday.
I put it out there on every run. On that second jump, I really wanted to get the mute grab in that 10, and it just wasn't working for me today, so I kind of switched for the third run, and I was so proud to put one down, but yeah, struggled to accept how close it was, but yeah, I know I've got more in me, so I'm glad I put it all out there today.
To football now, and after an action-packed weekend of matches, the draw for the quarter-finals of the Scottish Cup threw up some mouth-watering ties, including Rangers hosting Celtic at Ibrox. Danny Rule's side booked their spot in the next round thanks to an 8-0 win over Queen's Park yesterday, before Falkirk needed extra time to get past local rival Stenhousemuir. So some ties to look forward to, including that Old Firm clash. But Celtic boss John McGlynn said he was delighted to get a home draw against either Dundee United or the Spartans in the quarters.
Loads of effort, loads of commitment, quality here and there, but obviously in front of goal, not enough quality. Took us too long to score. But credit to the Stenhousemuir defenders, who defended quite well. They stopped crosses, defended crosses, so fair play to them from that point of view. But delighted to be through. Obviously, we've been away. The last two rounds we've been away from home, so delighted to get home. When you get to the quarter-finals, there's not going to be any easy games, but we're at home, so we're pleased about that, yeah.
And you can catch up with all the news from the Winter Olympics on the BBC Sport Scotland. Also football news for you as well, the latest on the build-up to what's a busy weekend of Premiership football.
Fingers crossed for some medals at the Winter Olympics.
Nice,
that'd be good.
Disappointing today, really disappointing.
There's always later this week. Jane, thank you so much. Now, campaigners are hoping for a last-minute reprieve for an ancient herd of wild goats, which is under threat of a cull. The goats of Langham Moor in southern Scotland have roamed the hills for hundreds of years, but new landowners say the numbers have to be drastically reduced to protect the environment. Cameron Buttle reports.
Bleak and beautiful, the hills of Langham Moor stretch as far as the eye can see. If you're lucky, you may catch a glimpse of some very rare wildlife. For hundreds, some say thousands of years, wild goats have wandered here, but now they face an uncertain future. Nicola Hood lives on the moor and says the goats are very special.
They mean a lot to me. I've become quite close over the last 7 years. It's just a regular group that's sort of around here, mainly females really. This is their home. I think they're the heart of this place. I think without them here, it's a dark, sad place. When you come here and there's no goats.
Part of the moor is owned by a rewilding company called Oxygen Conservation. It started culling the goats last year, and that sparked outrage amongst many local people, and a petition with more than 22,000 signatures was sent to the Scottish Parliament. Nobody knows exactly how many wild goats are out there. They could be spread across tens of thousands of acres. And as the law stands, it is legal to cull goats as long as animal welfare guidelines are followed. But the local campaigners say the Langham wild goats are at risk of extinction unless they get protected status. Culling wild animals is not uncommon in Scotland. There are regular culls of the deer population. The aim is to lower their numbers to manageable levels to reduce their impact on local environments.
There are a number of landowners who are taking the option to cull the goats before we actually know what the overall population is. And we believe that until we understand the population and more of the science, then it is a wrong thing to do to start taking numbers of goats out of the population.
What difference will the protected status mean, though?
Oh, the protected status is everything, because it will compel landowners to come together to agree on the management, the overall and overarching management of the entire herd.
Oxygen Conservation declined our request for an interview. A company statement said it was not seeking to eradicate the goats. It said goat numbers were significantly higher than historic levels, and there was a need to manage the whole landscape. The Scottish Government said it does not intend to provide feral goats with protected status, but will consider recommendations from the Petition Committee, which meets on Wednesday. Cameron Buttle reporting Scotland, Langham.
OK, Christopher is here with the weather. Whispers of maybe spring-like weather?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say spring-like, but drier and brighter. Actually turning colder, Lucy, but at least it'll be drier. There were some brighter glimpses around today. Lovely picture here from one of our weather watchers in Plockton. However, cloudy skies for many and still outbreaks of rain, sodden ground across the northeast, and there's more rain to come over the next few days. Let's take a look at what's going on. Now, this is the pressure sequence for the week ahead. You can see we've got areas of low pressure, like we've seen in recent days, moving through, bringing weather fronts and rain. But actually, high pressure has been blocking their progress eastwards. That changes by Friday, allowing them to move through, and then a north wind to develop. That means drier, brighter, but colder conditions. This is the picture first thing tomorrow. It's cloudy with outbreaks of rain. Temperatures here 8 in the morning. Nothing desperately cold for many, 6 or 7 Celsius. Chilly in towards Inverness there at 3 degrees. Drier towards the far north, but still a few spots of rain. Same too around the northwest coast and the Northern Isles, where the brisk southeast wind is still with us. Now, we do have a Met Office yellow warning in force from 9 a.m. tomorrow morning across the northeast, because once again it's persistent rain driven in on those brisk southeast winds and that wet weather falling on sodden ground, so we could well see some localised flooding as a result. 7 to 9 Celsius, and then from midnight tomorrow night we extend it further south and run it throughout the day on Wednesday, once again across parts of the east and northeast for that familiar pattern of heavy persistent rain falling as snow in the hills. Elsewhere, cloudy and wet as well, has to be said, but the northeast, because we've had so much rain there, just seeing those totals once again mount up. The black arrows indicating wind gusts from an easterly direction, giving a cold feel. Signs of a change from Thursday onwards. You can see low pressure and cloud moving southwards. The wind's now coming in from the north. Notice the temperatures coming down 4 to 6 Celsius. And that is the theme as we head through Friday and into Saturday. High pressure building in, lots of dry and bright weather. There is some rain probably by Sunday, but we're getting ahead of ourselves somewhat. Let's take a look at the picture on Friday. You can see the north wind bringing in some wintry showers, but for many a much brighter, albeit colder picture, and certainly we lose that heavy persistent rain across the northeast. You can see on the outlook it's still unsettled, but by Friday and Saturday of course Valentine's Day, weather perhaps you might love. That's the forecast.
Chris, thank you very much. Let's focus on Saturday, forget about Sunday for now. Thanks so much. And that is all from us for now. Laura is here with you tomorrow night from 7. Keep up to date until then on the BBC News app with all of the developing stories from both of us. Goodbye for now.